Dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to shed light about the latest developments in the Libyan file. And first, we'll start with this report from Morocco, where UN Chief urges Morocco Polisario to accept candidate for the Western of Sahara. More details in the following story.
The UN chief on Friday urged Morocco and the Polisario Front to accept this next candidate for the post of the UN Special Envoy for disputed region of the Western Sahara after they rejected all the previous candidates. The Polisario Front has for decades fought Morocco for the independence of the Western Sahara, a desert region bigger than the British territories, which was a Spanish colony until 1975. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at a joint press conference in Madrid with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez that it is absolutely essential to have an envoy to relaunch the political dialogue on the Western Sahara. He explained that the difficulty is that they already put forward 13 names, and until now they haven't got the parties' agreement, which is very important because the envoy has to work with them to launch a political dialogue. He said that relaunching dialogue over the long-running conflict was also critical for facing up to existing frustration because of the crisis, which still has no way out. Although Guterres did not identify the latest candidate, it was, according to diplomatic sources at the UN, former UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura. The same sources said his name was accepted by the Polisario but turned down by Morocco. US Secretary of State Antonio Blinken had in March urged Guterres to speed up the process of appointing a new special envoy for the Western Sahara to fill what was then a nearly 2-year vacancy. The position has been vacant since May 2019, when former German President Horst Kohler stepped down officially for health reasons. Morocco controls 80% of the Western Sahara, while the rest, an area bordering Mauritania that is almost totally landlocked, is run by the Polisario Front and also known for the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Rabat has offered the vast territory autonomy, but maintained it is part of the Moroccan kingdom. After 16 years of war, Rabat and the Polisario signed a ceasefire in 1991, but a UN-backed referendum on self-determination has been constantly postponed. The Western Sahara is designated by the United Nations as a non-self-governing territory whose people have not yet attained the full measures of self-government. Hostilities resumed in November when the Polisario, which is backed by Algeria, declared the ceasefire over after Morocco sent troops into a UN patrolled buffer zone to reopen a key road.
And to shed light on the latest in the Libyan file and the latest development there, we are very much delighted to have with us over the phone Dr. Ashraf Singer, Professor of International Politics. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Singer.
Good afternoon.
Sir, how do you evaluate the Egyptian role in supporting the Libyan-led comprehension political process to end the conflict in the north of the African country?
Libya is a very crucial state for Egypt, and that the degree of instability in Libya really create major threats to Egypt.
Yep.
That's first. Second, it's really interested in bringing all parties in Libya together that can really bring Libya back to the Arab Union's stable country, enjoying, the benefits to be part of the Arab cultures and taking a very strong action against all the bloody guys who really come to create instability in Libya. So part of Egypt's interest to keep Libya stable and bring Libya back with a strong economy and can really act in an international arena as Egypt expects for near future.
Yes. Dr. Singer, the head of the Libyan government of the National Unity, Abdelhamid Dbeibeh, has announced that the country's general election will be held on time, which is in December 2021. How do you read this and how do you view the latest developments on the ground in Libya?
Libya, people very kind people. So, term of they can really come together with one resolution, can really bring Libya back. The most important issue, how really we can really stop the intervene from other countries.
Yeah.
They have some interest in Libya. So for that in time of election or national election by end of December this year is very crucial, very vital for Libya. For Libyans, they can really choose the right people, can really lead their country, and I think the international community, especially the UN, Council, Security Council, they adopting resolution 2571 this year, trying to support Egypt's economy and stop that kind of level of intervention from some people or some countries. They have some interest to make Libya stable.
Yep.
So this is one of the major challenge for the international community, in dealing with the situation in Libya now. But France, most of the European countries, they are agreeing on that degree of stability in Libya, and all parties should really implement this agreement as they implement before the ceasefire agreement, which is signed in Geneva in October 2020.
Yes. Sir, also the UN mission to Libya announced that the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum does this did actually fail somehow. Does this failure raise fears of the collapse of the roadmap that had been agreed upon between the different Libyan parties?
That mission sent, the establishment of it, and really getting huge popularity among, the New Yorkers or the people who really meet in the UN over there, because this is the only path to really give Libya, I would say, the degree of stability and, UNSMIL, which is the Libyan, support, United Nations support mission in Libya, that mission, one of it is to help Libya in terms of humanities activities, bring, Libyans, together. They can really agree on one issue, stopping, the intervention, as I mentioned before, from all the countries that really they have interest in Libya oil, but they don't have any interest about Libya stability, and this is exactly the opposite of Egypt's role, where Egypt is really very interested in Libya as a whole country, not divided Libya, because great divisions in Libya will not help anybody and create a huge threats for North Africa. And I think Morocco, Algeria, Nigeria, they agree with Egypt's vision, how to help Libya to come back as a strong country in North Africa.
Yes. Sir, also the BEPA called on the Libyan parties to give priorities to Libya's interest over the factional interest. Through your observations, sir, do you see that all the Libyan factions and warring sides are on board so that the Libyan people could reach the December elections deadline?
I hope that Libyans can really be rational and can really take that action to save their country. Unfortunately, still one or two countries, I don't like to bring their names here, but unfortunately they still, creating that kind of, divisions among Libyans. But with that kind of support from the international community, with Egypt, I think Libyans can really be rational and take the right decision for their country, because
Yes.
if they're gonna to fight again, this will, will lead to, a huge collapse of the states and fragile states. And this is what all the Libyans, they don't like to see this in their home country. And all Libyans, even the Libyans who live abroad, they feel, sympathy about their country, and they need to
indeed.
help their country. And I think, there is like a huge pushing from the Arab countries to help Libya, either, United Arab Emirates, of course, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, all the major countries in the Arab world. They're really interested in making that election happen, and with that degree of, I would say, free elections, the way to see Libyans to come together to
Yes.
save their countries.
Doctor, Egypt actually is adopting a strategy of opening up to all the Libyan parties, supporting a political solution as part of its support to the effort to defuse the crisis in Libya. How do you read this, and how do you see the Egyptian role here in trying to defuse the tension and solving the problem in Libya?
One of the good things about Egypt diplomacy, and also the perception of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to approach Egypt, to approach Libya crisis, was really great. Depends on that legacy of Egypt diplomacy and the perception of President Sisi to understand the current situation in Libya. We cannot really solve Libya problem without understand the importance of the tribes in Libya. It's not about only civilians who really live to that Tripoli or Sirte or on the North Shore, but we have to understand, the interactions among the Libyan tribes, and I think Egypt approached correctly to approach these guys. I mentioned what I mentioned about the Libyan tribes, and I think Egypt succeeded significantly to let all of these parties understand their country problem, their country crisis.
Indeed.
And the price they're gonna to pay if they are not together, they're gonna to lose their country. And I think Egypt doing that, it is a responsibility as a major power in North Africa, the mother of the Arab nations. So without any interest in Libya or taking anything without their will, but the future will be bright for Egypt and Libya if they can cooperate together, building Libya again, support Libya, and Libya gonna to support Egypt, and this is very important in coming days and coming years.
Indeed, Dr. Ashraf Singer, Professor of International Politics. Many thanks for your precious input, sir. Thank you very much for being with us. And still with Libya, where UN-sponsored talks aimed at paving the way for the elections in Libya in late December failed to find a common ground. Actually, Radisson Zenegna, Assistant Secretary General and Mission Coordinator of the UN Support Mission in Libya, called on the participants to pursue the efforts, describing the talks as heated debate marked by threats of walkouts. More details.
The deputy of the United Nations mission in Libya said on Friday night, after week-long talks near Geneva, that UN-sponsored talks aimed at paving the way for elections in Libya in late December failed to find common ground. Renslan Zengab, Assistant Secretary General and Mission Coordinator of the UN Support Mission in Libya, called on the participants to pursue the effort, describing the talks as heated debate marked by the threats of walkouts. The talks had been extended into the fifth day on Friday, with delegates struggling to agree. They had been expected to establish the constitutional basis for the presidential and parliamentary election by the 1st of July. But delegates and UN officials said they could not agree among themselves on several proposals circulating, prompting organizers to extend the talks originally planned to last 4 days. The election would be a critical step in the international efforts to bring stability to Libya, and that which has been in turmoil since 2011 NATO-backed uprising against Muammar Gaddafi. A UN-led peace process brought a ceasefire last summer after fighting between rival factions paused and then a unity government was formed. The talks in Switzerland follow an international conference in Berlin last week. The United Nations envoy for Libya, Jan Kubis, said on Monday that leaving Switzerland without a decision this week was not an option given the time frame. On Thursday, Kubis described that day's session as difficult and urged delegates to refrain from disrespectful behavior and personal attacks without elaborating. The LPDF member Ilham Saudi said on Friday that this is not the outcome that many had hoped for, but it is better outcome given the option that were on table and the UNSMIL leadership's inability to keep the talks on track. She added that this is only delaying the battle but does not resolve the issue, calling on others to remember the interests of Libya and the Libyans who deserved the election. A ceasefire was agreed in October, and the next month the participants in the UN peace dialogue set a date for the elections and agreed to create a new interim government. However, major risks persist, with many armed groups holding power on the ground.
As the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic weighs down on the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African nation has been in significant increase in the number of infections and deaths over the recent weeks. More details.
As the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic weighs down on the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African nation has seen a significant increase in the number of infections and deaths over recent weeks. Its vaccination rollout launched in March, months after European countries suspended the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which is received via the COVAX initiative, which has been stalled. The slowness of the vaccination campaign is due to growing distrust compounded by the circulating misinformation. Mimi Hernet Mishika, head of the vaccination unit at Ngelmia Clinic, explored the importance of creating awareness among the population of the benefits of the COVID-19 vaccine during the unprecedented health crisis. Since April 24th, when vaccination operations kicked off, about 100,000 people have been vaccinated out of 3 million people. The health authorities are targeting to achieve herd immunity, with larger percentage of the Congolese population still suspicious of this particular brand of the coronavirus vaccine. The turnout rate to get vaccinated has been rather low in the country. On the other hand, World Bank has approved that $12.5 million be granted to the Republic of Congo in order to acquire COVID-19 vaccines and reinforce the awareness of the benefits of its vaccination campaign. Many other countries on the African continent are also navigating similar challenges of COVID-19 vaccine hesitation due to the fears over potential side effects. Meanwhile, the International Federation of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent Societies, IFRC, announced that halting an increasing trend of COVID-19 cases in Africa will require additional funding amid the worrying surge of the cases in Uganda, Rwanda, DRC, Namibia, Zambia, Mozambique, and South Africa. National Red Cross teams in these 7 countries are stepping up surveillance, testing, healthcare, and hygiene activities. However, efforts like these ones aimed at containing the spread of the virus, which have been strained by the insufficient funding. With the third wave looming large, there are increasing concerns that the impact will be more devastating, especially if the shortages of funds persists.
Well, with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching.